You've seen imports come and go. Who, in your opinion, is the best you've ever seen?
Oh, it's a hot topic, isn't it, at the moment, particularly with what Bryce Cotton is doing. And Bryce Cotton is clearly the best player in the country right now. And if he's able to sustain the level of what he's doing for a little bit longer, then maybe he'll overtake my best of all time, and that's Leroy Loggins. Now, Leroy did it for 21 years. He was outstanding at both ends of the floor, winning Defensive Player of the Year titles that Bryce Cotton is not going to win. So Bryce has done it for 8 years, and he's been the best at it. But 21 versus 8, I give it to Leroy just through the longevity. But if Bryce keeps going for a few more years, then maybe he'll catch him and overtake him. We all suffer from recency bias. But as you say, Joe, I was lucky to be there in the formative years of the 1980s. So I saw Leroy Loggins up close. I saw Al Green and Mark Davis and the Alabama slammer James Crawford, who was my favourite player initially because just the electricity he brought and the athleticism that he brought, it was just an amazing scenario. And all those players would still be competitive today. It's always tough to compare eras, but those guys would still be competitive today. And have a look at Kevin Brooks. There's great highlights of his career on the internet. And if you go back and look what he was doing 20 years ago or 25 years ago now, there are players that aren't doing what he was doing then now. His game stacks up right now. He'd be a superstar, Kevin Brooks. So I think that certainly the players of the past are just as good as the ones we've got at the moment. And yes, there is a higher quality and a higher standard of the game right across the board. But those guys were exceptional. You know, Ricky Grace, Darryl McDonald, they had triple doubles in grand finals. They set the tone. They were fantastic to watch, and they'd be stars in any era.
Well, I don't think they'd just be competitive. I think what you finish with, Case, is exactly right. Those guys would be stars. The 4 players that I have on my list that I was lucky enough to be able to play with and against, 5 years with Leroy Loggins, and he was just a superstar. He could play in the NBA. There's no doubt about that. And sometimes it's just about opportunities at that time. He found himself in Australia. There wasn't the same pathways back in the 80s and 90s to be able to get to the NBA from Australia. They weren't looking at the NBL.